Hi Fox, how you doing? So the Zurich Chess Challenge 2014 is over. Magnus Carlsen finally managed to win the tournament, although he didn't play that well in the rapid format, in the rapid games at the end, but still managed to be ahead of Fabiano Caruana and Levon Aronian, who shared second. And well, here I'm gonna show you one of the probably most interesting games of these rapid ones. Probably not the most flashy or spectacular one, because, for instance, Nakamura has been playing much more interesting games, more crazy, etc. But this is one of the most expected chess duels of nowadays, if not the most expected one. World champion and number one, the wonder kid from Norway, Magnus Carlsen, facing the Armenian pride, the super chess player from Armenia, Levon Aronian, so world number one against world number two, the only two players above 2800. And two very probably the strongest players right now in the world. As Aronian has shown, he's in a very great shape, and well, as we can see, Magnus almost never fails. But today Aronian will show that he's not undefeated. He's not unbeatable. He's human as everybody else, and also can lose. Actually, I can't remember the last time I saw Magnus losing, but hey, today was the day, although it was only a rapid game. So there we go. Levon Aronian was white here. Magnus Carlsen is black. Knight f3, knight f6, c4. Now Aronian's openings are more or less known. No, not too much surprises there. He always, with white, plays kind of d4, c4, all these closed openings. But Magnus has a very wide choice of openings, as he has demonstrated more than once. And well, the point is that Aronian, although he plays a quite limited repertoire of openings, he is absolutely master in those lines. He's almost unmatched in his laboratory preparation, so today he shows it. He played his first maybe 10 or 15 moves at the spot. I mean, without even thinking for a second. So he shows he's a master in the openings. E6, G3, D5. This is going towards a Catalan opening. Bishop G2, Bishop E7, D4, standard Catalan. Short castle, Queen C2, one of the lots of available moves for white. I mean, the Catalan is huge in amount of theory. And c5, black strikes in the center right away. And interesting enough, Aronian himself had used this line a couple of days ago to beat Gelfand with black pieces. In the rapid game they had to play after their quick draw, relatively quick draw. So he beat Gelfand with this line, I think, with this c5 in the Catalan. Now he plays it with white, short castle. Black takes on d4 on the center. Knight takes, now e5 is played by Carlsen. Once again, and this is not a surprise to anyone, I think, Carlsen plays not the most common move, not the most known, not the most popular, but it's a perfectly sound and logical move here. It is much more common to play here knight c6, and now the knight takes, b takes, and well, white has some idea to bring the rook to d1 or to play b3, bishop b2, etc. to place positionally solid. But here he plays e5. Seems quite ambitious for black, taking his pawns to the center, trying to grab the center for his pawns. Knight f5, well, logical. I mean, going to f3 apart from the move e4, which seems natural. Just asking the white knight what is it doing exactly. Knight c6 seems strong as well. Now the pawn is protected on e5, and black pawns on the center look really good. Though still very much to be played, but this looks cool for black. No, not really. He seems to have equalized more or less easily in this line. Now knight f5 is played, seems more natural, and d4. This is black's idea. He has a couple of strong pawns, great looking pawns in the center, which give him lots of space and lots of possibilities to go ahead and keep advancing it, if possible, and craps a little bit white pieces development. Now the white knight can't go to c3, for instance, etc. But on the other hand, all positions has its own disadvantages, and the con here is the weaknesses that these pawns leave behind. Now concretely the bishop on g2 is controlling the light squares very well. That's a monster piece right now, and that's the game is going to play Aronian. He's going to try to take advantage of this fact to play against white light square weaknesses on the queen side that black is going to have. Here the knight takes on d7 typically. Carlsen takes back and bishop g5 is the move here. Lots of strong players have played this. I mean, not that much games, maybe less than 20, but players like Wojtasek from Poland, Yu Yangji, the Chinese young grandmaster, and Anish Giri from the Netherlands had played this line with white. And here h6, very natural to get back the bishop pair. I mean, other moves don't seem that great. Knight bd7, for instance, but now knight a3 and the bishop on c8 is lacking space to be developed, and so probably knight c5. The knight must be played once again. Other move, for instance, knight c6, knight d2 to go to e4 probably to keep pressure, but and h6 must be played sooner or later. So no point in delaying that much. So h6 is very correct. Bishop takes, queen takes, and now knight d2. White is slightly better, I mean nothing that great, but his bishop on g2 is very good, and he will try to develop activity on the queen side. And as I said earlier, on the other hand, black has a couple of nice looking pawns on the center. He has space in the center, it gives him some space, so he'll try to complete development and just hold on and try to not give up too much weaknesses on the queen side. Bishop f5, certainly looking natural, guarding this e4 square, of course attacking the queen, guarding the center. The point is that it's leaving b7 without protection, so queen b3, but no problem for black. He plays knight d7, saying go ahead and take the b7 pawn. Of course, doesn't seem that great. In fact, it isn't that great to take it. Aronian played queen a3 to free his b pawn. He will try to push his pawns. I mean, taking the pawn on b7 with the queen would lead to lots of initiative for black. Rook a b8. Now, although white takes another pawn, now queen takes b2. He's attacking the knight. He's x-raying the pawn on e2, and if white coordinates well enough, he could start pushing these pawns even further, the d and d pawn, with some painful effects for white. Otherwise, taking with b7 on b7 with the bishop. No need to say that this pin must be really uncomfortable for black. I mean for white. Knight c5 to be followed, etc. This doesn't seem that great. So queen a3, very smart move. Queen b6. The queen must stay active. The queen side is the place to be in this game, in this position right now. Rook fc1, rook fc8, and finally b4. White is definitely trying to create initiative on the queen side. He has more space there. He has that 3 against 2 pawn structure, so he will try to play on the queen side definitely. a5, a very natural reaction, trying to stop white pawn storm, activating or trying to activate his rook on a8, very natural. c5, attacking the queen, and now queen a6, which seems to be almost the only mistake by Magnus Carlsen, the world champion in this game. But this time it was Levon's turn to be merciless with tiny errors like usually the world champion does. So let us see some alternatives. Of course, taking on b4 is a big blunder, tactical blunder, because it seems you're attacking the queen as well, but queen takes a8, and now what? White has taken a rook, and if queens are exchanged, that's a rook up, so no need to calculate much more there. Queen b5, it's supposed to be the good move. I mean, queen is keeping flexibility, is attacking the pawn there, but I don't think he would take it anyway. But still, keeping flexibility and trying not to give up too much weaknesses, as it seems queen a6 does. Well, and queen takes b4. Once again, another tactical mistake. It would be by black. Queen takes, and now the b7 pawn is hanging, so bishop takes b7, attacking both rooks. Not really good for black. So queen a6, and now, as I said, Aronian, the Armenian GM, is merciless. Knight c4, the knight gets in, and will be really painful here on the black camp, creating lots of trouble. Bishop e6, attacking the knight. Of course, the knight will move. Computer suggests that queen e6 is more accurate. Not really sure at the first sight why exactly knight d6 would be the move anyway, attacking apart from the rook, the bishop on f5. Now e takes b, queen takes b4, and now the rook is under attack, so rook c7, but knight b5 attacking it once again, and now where to go? I mean, if you go to c6, well, white takes it on the spot. If you go back to c7, to c8, bishop takes on b7 as earlier, and if you try to take on c5, well, probably it's better shot to try to mud the waters a little, try to exchange some pieces, try to get some compensation for the piece. Rook takes, knight takes, queen takes, although black takes a second pawn, threatening to take the one on e2, but rook e2, and well, black probably hasn't enough compensation. I mean, a couple of pawns for the piece, but I think white, at this level at least, white should solidify his position slowly, and just black will lack in compensation and counterplay for his for the material imbalance. So bishop e6 was played, still a playable move in this position, but knight d6 is going to be played anyway, attacking the rook, attacking b7. This knight is really a monster here, very strong. A takes b4, and now Aronian is happy to exchange queens. Queen takes a6, b takes a6, because he's attacking both rooks. He's winning material forced. Here he had a couple of alternatives. He took on c8. Well, James may say it's not the best one, but it can't be a bad move either. You're taking the exchange. The other possibility was to take on a8. Rook takes, and now, for instance, c6, knight b6, c7, and well, white should be winning. I mean, this is a pawn on the bishop against white rook. Still some job to be done, but the pawn on c7 is really very strong. It gives white lots of winning chances here. I mean, this must be winning for white. The other alternative suggested by the engine, was f4. The point is that you're threatening to push f5, trapping the bishop. Interesting enough. So, for instance, knight f6 for the bishop to have the d7 square, and now bishop takes a8, rook takes a8, and f takes e5. He's losing a pawn, but white was threatening to trap the bishop. Other possibility, e takes f4, but now g takes. Once again, you have this chance, so g6. But well, and other move I was thinking about, for instance, what if f6? You defend the pawn, you give the f7 square, but it seems it's still, I mean, it still can't be bad for white. It is very good for white. c6 first, knight b6. Now you take on c8, rook takes, f takes e5, f takes e5, and this still should be technically winning for white. So nothing that great would change. Knight takes c8, rook takes c8 was played in the game. Now c6, knight b6, and rook a b1, obviously attacking the pawn. a5 here defending, a3. The pawn is pinned. Of course, it can't take on e3. The knight on b6 is hanging, so b3. And here c7, with the threat, for instance, to go bishop b7, and well, to basically win the game because it would go ahead. But the point is that rook c5 was really looking quite natural as well, attacking both pawns. Now here, after c7, bishop c4 was played. Just now white rook is not defending his own pawn. White still had the possibility to play, for instance, bishop h3, more or less doing the same as with bishop b7, but he still went for bishop b7. I mean, with bishop h3 probably we would have very similar things than in the game. This is an interesting tactic which was going to liquidate into the endgame we're going to see today. Bishop b7, now the bishop on, the pawn on c7 is hanging, so the rook must take. But the point is that the bishop on c4 is pinned because the rook is there unprotected, so rook takes b3. So black takes on b7, white does so on c4, knight takes on c4, and rook takes b7. Pretty much forced all this after the bishop b7 move by Aronian. So we're in the technical stage of the game, in the end game, which should be winning for white. And here is where the super GMs have to show their technique, have to show their skills to win a better endgame or to defend a worse endgame. So there we go. Knight takes a3, king g2. Well, I mean, Aronian knows that the a pawn is going to fall sooner or later, so the important part of this game is going to be played on the king side, where he has to avoid any counterplay, anything. Anyway, rook b2 to play rook a2 and take the pawn fastly looks really natural. So, for instance, king f8, rook a2. Now knight c4, still defending, but after rook a4 attacking both things, the knight must give up and knight takes c5. Rook takes c5, sorry. But anyway, king g2 here. This is all of here is more a question of technique and move sequences more than concrete tactical lines or anything. So this is very positional endgame of maneuvers. Now knight c4, g4. As I said, black will try to create a fortress on the king side or something, and white must start to fight against that right now. Knight d6, rook a7, and f6. Magnus gives up the defense of that a pawn. It doesn't make sense, so he must try to concentrate his effort on the king side to keep everything tied up and not to have anything lose, any weakness. He will try to create a fortress, obviously. Rook takes a5, knight d4, h4. White advances his pawns as much as possible to avoid black from having much space. h5. Probably not the best move, but I mean, in this endgame, it's not that easy. In a rapid game with time pressure as Magnus had to play the best move suggested by the engine. Anyway, this is an endgame where the engines are not that reliable, because they might see lots of advantage when it is a fortress and keep saying it's a victory, etc. So h5, the point is that white takes, and now he plays king h7. White pawn structure now is much worse, obviously. The double h pawn are not that great. Rook a8, knight d6. The knight tries to keep his activity. King f3, knight f5, attacking the pawn on h4. King g4, knight h6 check. Now king h3, no more checks so far. Knight f5, the knight must keep playing actively, otherwise black is absolutely lost. Rook d8, and this is what effectively white is trying to avoid. He's trying to avoid black's moves. Black knight's move. He's trying to reduce its activity, because it's the key between the victory or the draw. Now the knight has only 2 squares available, as you can see. So knight h6 is played here. Now f4, he takes, and now white's task is much easier, because he's going to take these pawns on f4 and d4, and his own pawns on h, for instance, are not going to be that easy to be taken by black. And the key is really going to be this e pawn, because sooner or later, if white is accurate enough to keep this knight from playing too much, from being too much active, he's going to take all pawns. And although black takes these h pawns, the e pawn is going to be very important. It's the one who's going to be winning the game. So rook takes d4, knight f7, rook takes f4, king h6, rook f5, defending the pawn obviously on h5, knight d6, rook d5, attacking the knight, knight c4, king g3. The king comes back. Activity is very important. When you have so few pieces on the board, every piece is much more important than in any other position. Knight d3, attacking the rook, rook c5, knight f1 check, king f4. Once again, the knight has only 2 squares to go to. Obviously, going into the corner doesn't seem the best idea in the world. So knight d2, e3, knight b3, and knight c3. Knight a5. White has improved a lot his position. Now the knight is on the edge and very far from the action, or from the center of the game, which are the pawns on the king side and the pawn on e3. So this is a major improvement for white, a very big success. Rook c8, king a7, king f5, and here in fact Magnus resigned. His knight is simply too far away, and soon he's going to be in kind of a Zugzwang. I mean, in a kind of a position where whatever he moves, he's going to worsen his position. So Magnus resigned at this point. This is absolutely done for white. For instance, just to show you, knight b7, but now king e6, and the only square knight has available is just go back and forth to a5. So knight a5, but now for instance h6, and if king takes, just to illustrate, king f7, and the black king has no way back to g6 for instance, and the white king is going to now is very much more active. King h5 to take the one on h4, but king takes g7, king takes h4, king takes f6, and the e-pawn promotes, for instance. This is a line just to demonstrate to show how difficult it is to black to hold this. So absolutely no way. That's why the world champion and highest rated player in the world knew it, obviously, and he resigned the game. So there we go. Magnus is human. He can be defeated, although not easy at all. But today 11 Aronian showed he's not unbeatable. So there it goes. Thanks for watching, and hope you liked the video.